ways got their way. Now Gorbachev and Yeltsin are in a bruising battle with the Soviet Congress, and they're resorting to old-fashioned American-style politics, arm twisting, vote trading, backroom deals, to push through their plan for a new Soviet Federation.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
I'm not the least bit embarrassed to tell you that I haven't a clue as to what is going on in the Soviet Union. Gorbachev and Yeltsin appear to have crafted what looks like a temporary marriage of convenience. It probably has no more or less of a chance of survival than most marriages of convenience. Both of them at the moment are trying to get the Congress of People's Deputies, 1,900 of them, to transfer power from the central government to the individual republics and, in effect, vote themselves out of a job. Precisely what will be left of the central government is not altogether clear. How the individual republics will relate to one another, who will be in charge of what, or responsible for what, is also somewhat murky. They're trying to rebuild the country without completely tearing it down. And it is impossible to describe, let alone define, how they're doing it, because they're making it up as they go along. Indeed, there are those still quite powerful in the Soviet Union who think the whole enterprise is a tragic mistake. One of them will join us from Moscow in a few minutes. We begin, however, with reports from Jackie Judd in Washington and Forrest Sawyer in Moscow.
Ставить сходу вообще, чтобы включить что-то и за основу принимать.
For 2 days, it looks like the old Mikhail Gorbachev, dominating the Congress of People's Deputies, pressing a radical plan to force the deputies to disband, while he establishes a new kind of union, with power in the hands of the republics. Down, but not out, Gorbachev was taking a bad poker hand and playing it well.
It was masterstroke. It was first time in many years that he was ahead of the public opinion. He proposed something, and something creatively.
Gorbachev has more rabbits in more hats than Imelda Marcos has shoes. I mean, every time we think that this is the end, he pulls something else out.
But today, the backlash arrived. Angry at being ordered out of high-rolling jobs, Gorbachev's opponents came denouncing what they bitterly called a presidential coup, violating their constitutional role.
The most dishonorable, horrible thing in the world is frightened deputies. Everything is trampled upon, and we are all silent.
In a sense, that really was a revolutionary step, illegal, unconstitutional, and so they were upset about it.
The opposition peppered the proposal with amendments and stalled debate so much that Russian television, unprepared for long recesses, ran out of alternative programming. By day's end, one source says, a frustrated Gorbachev was still 3 votes short of the 2/3 majority he needs. The republics were trying on their new power.
We got a telegram from the Supreme Soviet of the Ukraine instructing us to withhold our votes on anything that might affect our sovereignty.
And Moscow was discovering what in the USA is called old-fashioned politics.
Well, for us, it's a new-fashioned politics. And I think that now in the Soviet Union, they start to recognize and to discover this side, the backside of democracy. There'll be a lot of corruption, there'll be a lot of hypocrisy, there'll be a lot of abuse of power, but still it is better than what we had here before.
All night long, the deputies have been behind closed doors, cutting deals, swapping votes, and listening to a little financial encouragement. Go along with Gorbachev's proposal, they're being told, and they get to keep their salaries for the rest of their terms, with free plane travel thrown in.
He's buying them off. It is not exactly a very democratic procedure. It's unseemly. But in this kind of situation, I guess you have to say expediency is what counts in this particular case.
In the end, observers say, Gorbachev will very likely win the congressional battle. But it is still an exercise in futility. The republics are already in control. The Congress is already dead. The deputies know it.
We must face the truth. There is no longer a Soviet Union. It no longer exists. We must use this unique chance and step down from this historic scene.
And the people know it too.
The Congress will be kaput. We are tired of them.
Yes, their time has passed. This is a new time. There should be new elections, a new parliament.
On one point, almost everyone agrees. A decision on the future of the Congress and the Soviet Union could well come in the next few hours. There is, after all, little time for arguing about these changes. With the Soviet economy a disaster and a hard winter ahead, the independent-minded republics might take a lesson from Benjamin Franklin. We must all hang together, he told the leaders of the American Revolution, or we shall all surely hang separately. Forrest Sawyer for Nightline in Moscow.
This is Jackie Judd. 4,870 miles from the hardball politics of the Congress of People's Deputies is the quiet back room of a Washington office guiding Russia's revolutionaries.
The Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Ministers and all the others, they're going to have to establish some structure of communication.
Alan Weinstein, head of the Center for Democracy, is no Ben Franklin, but he is an American schooled in political history who has helped create democratic institutions in any number of countries. Today he answers questions like, what is the Bill of Rights about? Asked by people involved in nothing less than a modern-day constitutional convention.
These people, after all, are compressing into a couple of weeks what we took a decade and a half to do. And they're not doing badly for that. So you have to think of this as 1776 to 1789 with fax machines and phones and jet airplanes.
During the attempted coup, news flashes from the Russian White House burned off this fax machine, announcing that tanks were coming. Gorbachev was incommunicado. Today, the center is sending newspaper articles to Moscow to help them get a reporting system set up, to help acquaint them with the view from America.
If we don't send these faxes to them, they really don't get news from Washington or from the United States about how people are feeling here, about what the views are on what's going on in the Soviet Union or what is going on with Yeltsin.
Weinstein is getting ready to go to Moscow this weekend to hang up his shingle. He delights in telling visitors that America's Center for Democracy probably will set up shop in what was the Communist Party headquarters. He'll be bringing some books along. The Russians want the Federalist Papers of 1788 about America's struggle to balance federal and states' rights. But Weinstein takes care to say he will not try to put the stamp "Made in America" on any new Soviet government.
They want to rejoin Europe or to join Europe for the first time. And they do not see their destiny in creating some type of United States of the Soviet Union.
On this day, Weinstein is dealing not with political theory, but with political reality. If Soviets aren't fed this winter, the new government won't last. He talks to the Russian White House then about a barter plan involving American business and Soviet farmers.
We would be able to provide the kind of, hopefully, the kind of consumer goods that would supplement the payments for farmers to encourage maximum harvest this winter.
These phone calls start at dawn. There's always someone waiting to talk on the other end. That's another thing that's changed in Moscow. Weinstein says no one there takes long lunches anymore. If you do, you miss a century. This is Jackie Judd for Nightline in Washington.
When we come back, we'll be joined here in our studios by Alan Weinstein and also by Colonel Viktor Alksnis, one of the hardline leaders in the Soviet parliament, who has warned that unless the secessionist movement is stopped, the Soviet Union could face a bloody civil war.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Toyota.
What comes with the 91 Toyota Corolla LE Extra Value Package? A lot of valuable extras that can add up to a savings of $1,000, plus factory-to-dealer incentives.
Right now, save on nearly every brand at Sears Grand Central's Birthday Bash. Pop in for this large capacity GE washer with permanent press cycle, just $319.99. Matching dryer, $269.99. Party's just starting at Sears Brand Central.
Why put up with glasses that just don't fit? LensCrafters has so many ways to fit your snug points. Like snug fit pads that flex to comfortably hug your nose. LensCrafters, better fit for greater comfort in about an hour.
It's here. Introducing 4.8% financing on Ford Ranger pickups. That's 4.8% financing for 48 months on the Ranger 4x2 and 4x4. 4.8% financing on all 1991 Rangers, even the STX and the Super Cab. 4.8% financing that can save you more than $1,500 only on the Ford Ranger. This offer is available only for a short time and only at your Northwest Ford dealer.
Not every bird you see at your grocery store is a fresh Oregon-grown chicken. Some are out-of-state birds, which come from thousands of miles away. To make the trip, they may be frozen solid, then days later left to thaw and labeled fresh, right alongside Oregon fryers, which can go from farm to store in just one day. So for the freshest chicken, look for the Grown in Oregon label. Without it, you could be getting a totally different breed of bird.
Soviets deciding their future. When the meeting ends, Peter Jennings will bring Gorbachev and Yeltsin together live to answer Americans' questions. Stay tuned to ABC News.
Joining us from our Washington bureau is Alan Weinstein, president of the Center for Democracy, which has been invited by Boris Yeltsin to set up a liaison office in Moscow to provide assistance in the formation of a new democratic government. And joining us from Moscow, Colonel Viktor Alksnis, a leading conservative in the Soviet parliament, who's been openly critical of both Gorbachev and Yeltsin. Colonel Alksnis, I know you to be a blunt man, so perhaps you will forgive a blunt question. What the hell is going on over there right now?
Well, today in Moscow, a state coup is taking place. Yesterday, the attempt has failed to do this in a coalition fashion, insofar as the draft of the law did not get the two-thirds necessary votes. And today, an attempt will be made to continue this government state coup.
Why do you call it a coup? I mean, we know that to be, I don't know if there's an accurate way of translating this into Russian, but we would describe it as hardball politics.
Well, how would the Americans relate to the following? If someone were to, let's say, cancel out the U.S. Constitution and to state that the U.S. is no longer a sovereign state, and to break it down into, let's say, 50 or 100 component parts, I think that the American society would be very negative towards this. Unfortunately, those kind of attempts are taking place today.
Do you feel that it's too late to do anything about it, or do you think that you and other conservatives in the Congress still have the power, still have the capacity to turn things around?
No, I think today no one is capable of doing anything. Unfortunately, we will be forced to drift along the streams of fate, and we probably will have to go through some shock therapy. This is connected with the crash of the economy and with the acuteness of the political situation, all connected with the destruction of the country.
Alan Weinstein, I realize that perhaps Colonel Alksnis is not your favorite representative over there in the Soviet Union, but he certainly represents a point of view which hasn't gotten a great deal of attention over the last few days, but which is going to create some real problems in the setting up of a functioning government over there.
Well, Ted, I would disagree with you in the sense that the Colonel does represent one of my favorite people in that parliament for an odd reason. When I was in Moscow last week, I watched the Colonel on television discussing at the meeting of the Supreme Soviet, trying to speak, trying to get attention. And I watched the wonderful body language of the Colonel and the leaders of the Parliament, many of whom he disagreed with. He's an accepted member of that process. His views are part of that process. So it's really quite extraordinary to hear the Colonel talk, the Colonel who endorsed a coup, a real coup, talk about this as a state coup. The real state coup, of course, Colonel, was the one that failed. And that's why there is this transition now toward full democratization and toward a process in which your voice will be heard quite fully.
How is his voice going to be heard? And I'll give the Colonel a chance to respond to you in just a moment. But how is his voice going to be heard if the Congress of People's Deputies is, in effect, going to be disbanded?
Well, for a very simple reason, Ted. They're going to have free elections. They're going to debate a new constitution for the Union, for each republic. And I doubt very much that the Colonel and his colleagues are going to disappear from the scene. They're going to organize politically. And as you said, they're going to wage a war politically this time, and not with tanks, as the Colonel and his friends, or at least some of the people the Colonel seemed on your show earlier this year to be supporting, did a few weeks ago.
Do you agree with that, Colonel, that the danger of violence, which you predicted, and it wasn't really earlier this year, it was only a couple of weeks ago, if you come right down to it, do you really think that the danger of violence has now disappeared in the Soviet Union?
I don't want to be a prophet here, but I think that this wave of violence will probably increase, because if the Parliament doesn't resolve these questions then will be resolved in the barricades and in the streets. And this is a very sorrow state of affairs. And when I just heard that this Congress will be liquidated, that's not quite right. The Congress itself has to liquidate itself. Any attempt to liquidate it is actually anti-constitutional. So I by no means am a proponent of this Congress, which is not capable of action any further. But today it is the only organ which is a legitimate body at the union level. And as sad as it might seem, I think it should be preserved, because its functions are necessary for the future.
Colonel, we're going to take a break. Mr. Weinstein will be back, and we'll continue our discussion in just a moment.
Did you know that the most valuable patent ever issued went to a small business owner, Alexander Graham Bell? Since then, AT&T has stayed on the cutting edge of communications. For example, AT&T just invented a new 800 service for small businesses. It uses your existing line and costs only $6 a month. At AT&T, almost half our business comes from small business. When you succeed, we succeed. Call about our 800 offer.
Car born of intelligent engineering. It's 100,000 ideas fused into one. It's responsive, innovative, refined. It's a driver's side airbag and anti-lock brakes. Introducing the all-new 88 Royale LS. Oldsmobile, the power of intelligent engineering.
It's a rare species that thrives like no other. Easily distinguished by unique markings, lean and powerful, adapting quickly to changing environments. It migrates to the snows in winter and has been spotted as far south as Baja. It prefers wide open spaces, primary instinct to care for its young. The Toyota 4Runner, no matter how distant the journey, it always returns home.
Sale at Fred Meyer. It'll get you noticed. It's worth a look.
Jack lived in Florida, Mary in Portland. They met at a sweetheart's ball and fell in love. Now, Jack lives in Portland, too. Part of the spirit of the Northwest is people taking the time to care for one another. I'm Paul Inman. At Channel 2 News, we devote part of our newscast to positive stories about good things going on in our community. Come along as we discover the spirit of the Northwest, weeknights on Channel 2 News.
Good news from the future. People in their 90s with the vitality they had in their 40s. Science is about to change dramatically the way people age. Watch Primetime Thursday.
Tomorrow, the latest developments in the Soviet Union.
And after half a century, why his crusade continues, the Reverend Billy Graham here on Good Morning America tomorrow.
Does it offend you, Colonel Auxness, to have a lot of Americans like Alan Weinstein coming over and rendering advice on how to run your economy, what kind of political system you may want to have?
No, not at all. I think this is a positive process. After all, that experience which America has gained and the Americans have gained over its long road to democracy has got to be very helpful. The problems which we're encountering today, you passed through these 200 years ago. When in the United States, when you had 13 sovereign states and they were conducting a fight with the center then, when they stopped paying taxes to the federal government, when the deputies refused to join the Confederation, this all happened. So the way that you've proceeded, this experience is helpful to us, and I think this is a very positive aspect that we are learning about your experience and how you solved those very problems which we're facing today.
Mr. Weinstein, how do you walk that delicate line between rendering advice that is being asked for and becoming, in a sense, patronizing and offending?
You walk it very carefully, Ted, and you walk it by consulting and listening to leaders of all opinions. I hope to meet with the Colonel, if he'll meet with me, on my next visit to Moscow next week, and that's an invitation, Colonel. And frankly, also, Ted, the Colonel fails to make one point in this connection that's very important, which is that we're not, yes, in fact, the American colonies moved from a loose confederation to a stronger union, but in the case of the Soviet Union, as the Colonel knows, it's moving from 75 years of empire and totalitarian government over the last 5 years through gradual decomposition under Mikhail Gorbachev's deft leadership, and it is now moving toward a confederation of independent republics, loosely bound for the moment, and the missing name in your opening piece was Boris Yeltsin because, in effect, this new architecture politically that is being designed and presented to the Congress of People's Deputies is as much the creation of the Yeltsin government as it was of Mikhail Gorbachev.
Colonel Auxness, we run a very informal dating service here. Are you accepting Mr. Weinstein's invitation to meet with you, or will you render to him an invitation to meet with you when he comes to Moscow?
Of course, I would be very happy to meet with absolutely everyone, including the opposition, any opponents.
What about Mr. Yeltsin? Are you afraid that he may gain? I mean, Mr. Weinstein is quite right. We did not mention him in the opening piece. Has he become the power to be reckoned with in the Soviet Union now? Colonel Auxness?
Да, я слышу. Это вопрос ко мне? Yes, I hear you. So that was a question for me, I see.
Вы знаете,
well, you know,
очевидно, будет обречен
Yeltsin will probably have to take up the position of our union because he will be forced to carry on the fight for a single federated union. The demands of the economy will force him to do that. That's first of all, and I'm convinced that he will do this. Because today, the Russian economy is falling apart, and any attempts to save this economy in the framework of Russia alone will be doomed to failure. He will be forced to save the economy on the union-wide level. And to do that, he will have to take all sorts of steps, including forceful ones. And when Yeltsin toured the various autonomous areas and he told people take as much sovereignty as you can, that was one position. But now, a year later, because Bulatov at the recent meeting told the autonomous districts that if their Supreme Soviets will be demanding sovereignty, then they will be dissolved. I don't understand how the Supreme Soviet of the Tatarstan can be dissolved and how airborne troops or tanks can be sent there. I think that Boris Yeltsin will be forced to go for that sort of thing eventually. Within the framework of Russia, he is threatening to do that, but outside of the Russian Republic, he supports the dissolution of the USSR. And here's the difference between me and Yeltsin. I think that the legacy of the 1917 government is the USSR. Yeltsin believes that that which is called the RSFSR is the legitimate heir of the Soviet Union, and this is the difference that exists between Yeltsin and myself.
Mr. Weinstein, we have only a few seconds left. Perhaps you could wrap up for us just in terms of focusing on what's going to happen tomorrow in the Soviet Union. What should we be looking for?
We should be looking, I think, for the question of whether Gorbachev and Yeltsin can go over the top. They can get those extra few votes. The Congress will dissolve. New elections will be held. The constitutional process started. And in final response to your question about how groups like ours work over there, Ted, we support the process, and that's what the U.S. government and the American people, I think, do as well. We don't support individuals, as the President has said. We support a process of democratization, the rule of law, privatization, and all the rest.
Mr. Weinstein, I thank you very much. Colonel Alksness, very good of you to join us. Thank you, sir. When we come back, one man's view of the situation in the Soviet Union. Again with the work of Renan Lurie, this view of Gorbachev's countdown to a new order.
On your mark. Get set.
Tomorrow on Primetime Live, an interview with perhaps the most visible symbol of the abortion rights movement, Faye Wattleton of Planned Parenthood. That's our report for tonight. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
There's one of the Nistler boys.
Which one? Aaron or?
That's Paul.
Paul.
And Peter, where's Peter? Peter's right here.
Peter and Paul Nitzler are twins. So are Alexandra and Teresa Orazio.
Alexandra has blue eyes, and Teresa has brown eyes. And so that helps out.
As any teacher who has had twins in a classroom knows, a clue to which twin is which helps. But look here. A couple of other students look a lot alike.
Good question. I know they need their name tags. I'm hopeless without them. What's your name? Are you Megan or Madeline? Which one? Madeline. This is Madeline, and this is Megan right here.
The Greggs, Madeline and Megan. And over here to finish out the list, Chris and Michael McKay. 4 sets of twins for one teacher to sort out.
I don't know if I can tell or not. Sometimes I think I will be able to, and then sometimes I don't.
You meet 20-plus people all at once and try to remember their names. You understand how Ms. McGanty must feel. Any clue will do.
And with the 2 boys, Peter and Paul, one of them is more adventuresome and asks a lot of questions. I'm not sure which one yet.
It will take a while. 3 sets of the twins are in her afternoon class, 1 set in the morning. For now, name tags help students and teacher alike. There is in all of this one thing to remember.
They're all individuals, and I hope to, judge them on their own individuality.
For Ms. McGanty, a